Welcome back to the Engineered Angler, and if you're brand new to the channel, I'm Franco. I'm a professional engineer with a passion for fishing and fabricating things, and I've combined those two passions with making all these lures and making tools to make lures and sharing it all with you guys through these YouTube videos. So, you know, you have to sort of push yourself as an angler and try new things and try to actually achieve new things. Now, I've been living in Florida for well, since I was 16, and I've done every kind of fishing there is to do here. Now, I haven't done it well, but I've done it. And the one thing I've done very little of is surf fishing. Now, I've done some surf fishing, but mostly for shark with big chunks of meat on the end of a hook. But I've done very little fishing with my own lures. And in fact, just recently I've been trying to sort of build an arsenal of new lures just for that, because I want to focus on fishing from the beach. Most recently I designed and made that big rattling popper lure that I took to the beach. And while I've caught fish off the beach with lures, I've never caught one with my own. And so while I love making lures, I'm not a big fan of copying other people's lures, so I like to kind of find my own variations, and I made this guy. And I call it, well, everything's got to have a name, I call it a reef rocket for obvious reasons, right? So while I haven't taken this fishing yet, I really like it. I think it's a good concept, and I want to make a smaller one, but with a little bit of a variation, so stick around. So this is really just a casting jig. It's designed to sink pretty quickly and just dart around, obviously. And you can imagine what it looks like underwater, or you can watch this little clip. Okay, so the main raw material for this lure is stainless steel tube. They're drinking straws. I guess with the advent of people trying to get rid of one-time use plastics, these stainless steel straws have come out on the market, and they're really inexpensive. And if you want to go out and buy like a 1-foot section, a 1/4 inch stainless steel tube, good luck. You've got to buy big pieces, and it's expensive and hard to find. And recently I made a little trip to the discount store nearby, and I found that they have a bigger diameter tube. This is really cool. This is almost 3/8, so that is going to make for a little bit heftier body and maybe a little more weight. So let's get started on the build. Now, besides the tubing, you're going to need some sort of weights. I'm using bullet weights, but you can use whatever you think will look good and work well, and whatever weight you think is going to work best for you. You're also going to need some sort of wire to use as your internal wiring harness. Now, when it comes to wire, we need to talk a little bit here. I know a lot of folks have some real questions about the wire I use and why I use it and how big a wire you really need to use. Well, most of the time, and I say this most of the time, the strength of the wire you use will far exceed anything that's on your rod and the strength of your rod and the line and everything else in your rig. And as long as you've got wire that with a tensile strength of over 100 pounds, which is a really fine wire, you're going to be fine. The big question is, how does it hold up once you put a barrel twist in it? So to that, I would give you this advice. Use wire that's annealed. Now, annealing is a heat treatment that they do to any metal, really, that basically takes the memory out of it. So a wire like this is stainless steel with a lot of memory. You can bend it 180 degrees and it comes back perfectly straight. If you try to do that with annealed wire, it basically stays bent. The reason it's important for a build like this, where you have to do a finishing twist to make that final eye at the end, it's important to be able to do that easily without any backspring. So you want that wire to wrap and hold tight to the standing wire, so it has lots of friction. So I'm going to be using this welding wire, which is annealed. It's 0.047 inches in diameter or 1.2 millimeters in diameter. And I'm going to make this one out of the larger diameter tube. It's going to give me a little more surface area to reflect light and just a little heftier profile in the water. So instead of cutting the tube at 3.5 inches, I'm going to cut it at 2 3/4 inches. I'm going to use a tube cutter to cut this, but you can just use a hacksaw, or really a cutting wheel on your Dremel will do the job. And it's pretty quick work with the right tools. So there's our main body. And if you look at the original design, you can see that I did that twist at the end. This dress tail is done on the wire itself. And then there's a small section cut out of the tube for the belly hook. And we're going to do this very similarly. The only difference is that with this tube, it's big enough in diameter that the wire wants to kind of slap around in there. It isn't getting sort of held in place by the eye. So as part of the process, I'm going to include this small brass bead. So first thing I'm going to do is make the tail eye. To do it, I like to set a little bit of a shoulder in it, then bring the tail end around so it forms a 90 with the standing line. And then I'll just give it a couple of wraps. Now a couple of wraps is really all you need. You're going to be tempted to put a bunch of wraps on it. And I'm telling you, I've done a lot of testing with this annealed wire. And if you can get 2 wraps on it, you've basically maximized the strength. And that's what it looks like. Now I'm going to do a dry assembly. All right, there it is. There's the brass bead right there and the bullet weight at the other end. So now I've just got to figure out a way to put a little port in here, about 1/2 of an inch back from the end of the tube itself. And here I'm just going to cut a slot. You can do this with your Dremel tool, and you can do this with a hacksaw and a file, whatever you have laying around that will cut into this metal. I want to make 2 cuts like this, and I want to go down almost halfway, about 1/3 of the way through the diameter of this tube. So now I can just take a file to that slot and clean it up a little bit. All right, so I've got this thing sort of semi-assembled again. What I need to do now is mark where that wire actually is going past the little slot. Then I'm going to reach in with this little file tip and wedge out a little bit of a kink in the wire. All right, and I've got a kink in it right there. Now I know that I can drop an eye down and into that slot so I can access the wire to put a split ring on it. So I can. And after teasing it around a little bit and rebending it once or twice, I've got it sitting in there really nicely. The last piece of the puzzle is the lead weight, and it ends up getting glued on there, and then the twists at the end hold it all together. All right, so before we get too far along, I want to paint the lead head the same way I painted this one. And instead of red, I'm going to go with this hot pink color. And don't ask me why. I don't have a good reason. Let's set up the vibratory table. All right, still working. All right, let me run it under water, and I'll show you what it looks like after it's cooled. It came out pretty good. Pretty nice hot pink color. All right, so I've got it assembled. Let me show you what it looks like. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of glue right at the connection between the tube and that lead, and then we'll put in that final eye at the nose, and then we'll put some paint on it. And then I just need to find a nice dressed treble hook, and I think we're gonna have a pretty nice looking lure. All right, that should do it. I've got it glued in there with the UV cure resin. And now let's go ahead and get the wraps for the tie-on eye. Now I'm gonna do the same thing I did for the tail eye, and I'm not gonna need too much more room than I did for this one. I'm only gonna give it maybe a third wrap, mostly to torque it down so it gets sort of pinched between the two eyes. Give it a kink in this direction, and then I'm gonna put a shoulder in it. See if you can see that. And then I'll wrap this around my plier until I have a 90, just like last time. And I'm going to give it as many wraps as it takes to snug it down against the piece of lead. So now I just need to cut off that tag. Well, that looks pretty good already, but let's get a little paint on it and see if we can't add a little more pretty to it. All right, so what I'm gonna do first, since I kind of got some glue on this thing, I'm gonna go ahead and add a little more pink. I've got some fluorescent pink in the gun, and I'm just gonna sort of enhance the color here and then bring it along the bottom. And now I'm gonna go with a nice dark pearlescent blue just on top. All right, I just want this right across the top. I'm gonna hit the pink and everything. All right, that's pretty cool. Now I'm gonna put a spot with some opaque black just where I want the eye to be, just to make that eye look a little bigger. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna let it dry, put a little bit of a polyacrylic coat on it, get the eye on it, and then clear coat it. I tell you what, everything that could go wrong went wrong on this lure. I had a lot of problems with the glue, as you saw. Bunch of little minor issues that was just tormenting the heck out of me. Sometimes the lures that give you the most trouble end up giving you a really nice finish. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and turn this thing. All right, that should do it for tonight. So it's the next day. I'm putting the finishing windings on this little dress treble hook for the lure. So let's take a look at how it came out. So before I show you the results of our little project, let me just remind you guys, if you enjoy these kind of videos, you like the content on this channel, subscribe and give me a thumbs up. It really helps keep me in equipment and hardware and gives me a lot more incentive to really bring these to you as much as I can. The more views and likes I get, the more the YouTube algorithm sort of exposes the channel a little more. So that said, let me get this out. Now I did leave it there for many hours. I forgot all about it last night, and it actually stayed with the UV lights on all night. Check it out. The blue looks really nice. And the gloss finish really kind of pulls it all together. Now it just needs some hooks. All right, that's gonna look really good in the water. Well, there it is, my number 2 reef rocket. Can't wait to get this thing in the water and hopefully catch something. Thank you to everybody for watching. We're quickly approaching 10,000 subscribers. So thank you to everyone who's subscribed and supported me, at least, you know, with comments and questions and just plain interest. Thank you very much. And hopefully we'll far exceed 10,000 next year. And I'll be able to get more videos, not just in the shop, but out on the water. So thank you very much. I'll see you on the next video.